There is a question I have been asked more than almost any other in the time I have been doing this work. It comes from women who have stood next to a Japanese woman in her 60s and genuinely could not reconcile the face with the age, or who have sat across from a Korean colleague and found themselves doing quiet arithmetic, trying to determine how the numbers could possibly be accurate. The question is always some version of the same thing. What are they doing that we are not? Most of the answers you will find online are surface level: green tea, sunscreen, diet. They are not wrong, but they are incomplete. They name the habit without explaining the mechanism. And without the mechanism, you cannot apply the habit correctly, which is why most women who try to replicate these practices get a fraction of the result. I have spent considerable time researching and applying the science behind these habits, not the cultural mythology, but the peer-reviewed biochemistry and the epigenetic research that has now caught up with what these women have been doing for generations. And what the science reveals is more specific, more actionable, and more immediately applicable than anything I have seen covered in one place. Today, I am giving you 5 of those habits, with the exact mechanisms behind each one. By the end of this video, you will understand not just what these women do, but precisely why it works, so you can apply it with the accuracy it requires. Before we go into the details of today's video, I have a free gift for you. It's something I know you'd appreciate. I have read a lot of comments from some of you asking for this, and I decided to build a checklist around it. It is called the Elegant Morning Routine Checklist: 12 rituals of women who are timeless, healthy, and undeniable after 40. It is the morning architecture that puts everything I described today into daily practice: cortisol protection, protein-first nutrition, movement, silence, grooming standards, and the identity rituals that make all of it sustainable. Every page is a deliberate act of self-respect. See the first link in the description below to grab it right now for free, or scan the QR code on your screen if you're watching on TV. When you do get it, remember to email me your feedback about your takeaway from it. I love to read those emails. Now let's get into today's habits. Habit 1. Green tea as a dual-track anti-aging protocol. Most women in the West who drink green tea are drinking it as a wellness gesture, a vague signal to themselves that they are making a healthy choice. The women in Japan and China, who have been drinking it daily for decades, running a protocol. And the difference between those two relationships with the same drink is the difference between a habit that feels virtuous and one that measurably slows how fast you age. I'm going to show you the 2-track mechanism behind green tea that almost no wellness brand has ever bothered to explain clearly. But first, there is something you need to understand about what is actually in the cup. I began drinking matcha, the powdered whole leaf form of green tea, seriously in my late 30s, after a conversation with a dermatologist I know in New York who had spent time studying skin aging patterns across different populations. She told me she had noticed a consistent pattern in the skin of Japanese women in her patient population compared to other groups of the same age: a preservation of dermal density, the thickness and structural integrity of the skin, that she attributed, at least in part, to sustained high-dose catechin intake over decades. Catechins, she explained, are the polyphenol compounds concentrated in green tea, and they operate on 2 separate biological tracks simultaneously. The first track is antioxidant. Catechins, particularly one called EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate, neutralize the free radicals generated by UV exposure, pollution, and cellular metabolism that directly damage collagen and elastin fibers. This mechanism is well documented. What is less commonly discussed is the second track. Catechins have been shown in research from the University of Osaka to inhibit an enzyme called matrix metalloproteinase, or MMP, which is the specific enzyme responsible for breaking down existing collagen in the skin. Most anti-aging interventions focus on stimulating new collagen production. Green tea, at sufficient daily intake, is simultaneously protecting the collagen you already have from enzymatic degradation. Those are 2 separate and compounding mechanisms operating every time you drink it. The analogy that makes this concrete: most anti-aging approaches are trying to fill a leaking bucket. Green tea is filling the bucket and patching the leak at the same time. Resolve. To access both mechanisms at meaningful concentration, you need a minimum of 2 to 3 cups of high-quality loose-leaf green tea or 1 to 2 servings of culinary-grade matcha daily. Bag green tea and steep for 2 to 3 minutes. Consistency over years is the operative variable. This is a decade-long investment, not a 30-day protocol. But here is where most people stop. And stopping here leaves you with an internal protocol that is not matched by what you are applying to your skin. Because the next habit concerns a topical ingredient that has been used across East Asia for centuries, and the fermented version of it is doing something to the skin barrier that most modern serums are attempting to replicate at significantly lower bioavailability. Habit 2. Fermented rice water and the skin barrier mechanism. Rice water has circulated in Western wellness spaces for several years now, largely framed as a traditional remedy, something grandmothers passed down, beautiful in its simplicity, vaguely effective. That framing undersells it significantly, and more importantly, misidentifies which version of it is actually doing the work. There is a meaningful biochemical difference between plain rice water and fermented rice water, and understanding that difference is the difference between a practice that improves your skin and one that transforms the barrier function of it. But before I give you the specific protocol, there is something you need to understand about the skin barrier itself. Skincare lines and spent considerable time reviewing formulation research, understanding what ingredients were doing at the cellular level versus what the marketing language was claiming. It gave me a healthy skepticism about ingredient claims that persists to this day. So when I began researching rice water seriously, I went directly to the fermentation chemistry rather than the cultural history. Here's what I found. Plain rice water contains vitamins B and E and amino acids, all legitimate skin-supporting compounds. Fermented rice water contains all of those, plus something additional. The fermentation process generates pitera, a compound rich in Saccharomycopsis ferment filtrate, which has been studied specifically for its effect on the skin's natural moisturizing factor, the complex of compounds that keeps the skin barrier intact and functional. Research examining fermented rice water's effect on transepidermal water loss, the measure of how well the skin barrier is retaining moisture, found meaningful improvement in barrier function after consistent use, at a level comparable to several considerably more expensive ceramide-based serums. A woman I know who spent several years living in Seoul before returning to New York told me that the rice water habit she observed there was always fermented, left for a minimum of 24 hours before use, sometimes longer. The fresh version, she said, was for rinsing vegetables. The fermented version was for the face. That distinction was never incidental. Resolve. To make fermented rice water correctly, rinse 1/4 cup of uncooked white or brown rice briefly, then soak it in 2 cups of filtered water for 30 minutes. Strain the rice, reserve the cloudy water, and leave it at room temperature, loosely covered, for 24 to 48 hours until it smells lightly sour, indicating active fermentation. Dilute it with an equal volume of fresh water before applying. Use it as a toner after cleansing, applied with a cotton pad or by gentle pressing with the hands before any other serum or moisturizer. Use it 3 to 4 times per week, consistently, not daily, to avoid potential irritation from the acidity. But here is where most people stop. And the next habit is the one that sits underneath every topical product you will ever apply. Because the single most consistent skincare practice across Japan, South Korea, and China is not a product at all. It is a behavior, and its effect on how quickly the skin ages has now been quantified in an epigenetic clock study that puts a number on something these women have practiced for generations. This is exactly what the Undeniable's complete system covers in detail. 7 complete guides, including identity, presence, first impressions, social mastery, wellness, standards, and your morning ritual. Everything the most elegant, vital, and undeniable version of you needs, built into one system for less than a dinner out. It's linked in the description below, or scan the QR code on your screen. Habit 3. Sun avoidance as an epigenetic practice. Every woman has been told to wear sunscreen. Most do, some of the time. What most women have not been told is the degree to which UV exposure, accumulated, daily, incidental exposure from commuting, walking, sitting near windows, is not merely a cosmetic concern, but a measurable accelerant of biological aging at the cellular level. The difference between knowing this abstractly and understanding what the research now quantifies changes the urgency of the habit entirely. I am going to give you the specific finding and the specific behavior that the women who age best across East Asia treat as non-negotiable. But first, there is something you need to understand about what the epigenetic clock is measuring. I became interested in epigenetic aging research through a conversation with a physician in my network who specializes in longevity medicine, one of the areas of medical science that has developed most rapidly in the last decade. She introduced me to the concept of the epigenetic clock, a biological measurement tool developed by researcher Steve Horvath at UCLA that assesses the actual rate at which your cells are aging based on DNA methylation patterns. Essentially, how fast your biological clock is ticking relative to your chronological age. The finding that stopped me was this. A study examining epigenetic age acceleration across populations found that chronic UV exposure was one of the strongest environmental predictors of accelerated biological aging in skin tissue. Not just accelerated visible aging, but measurably faster cellular aging as tracked by the epigenetic clock. The skin of women with consistent UV protection showed a biological age meaningfully younger than their chronological age. The skin of women with chronic sun exposure showed the reverse. The women across Japan, South Korea, and China who carry parasols in summer, wear long sleeves in warm weather, apply SPF as the first step of every morning routine regardless of the forecast, and avoid peak UV hours as a matter of daily habit are not doing so from vanity. They are managing their biological clock with a precision that most Western approaches to anti-aging spend considerably more money trying to reverse after the fact. Resolve. Apply a broad-spectrum SPF 50 as the final step of your morning skincare routine, every single morning, regardless of weather or plans. Reapply at midday if you're spending time near windows or outdoors. Consider a physical barrier, a wide-brimmed hat, a long sleeve, a parasol in direct summer sun, not as an eccentricity, but as a daily UV management tool. The habit is simple. The compounding effect of holding it consistently across a decade is not. But here's where most people stop, and the next habit addresses something entirely separate from what you put on your skin. It concerns what you put in your body, and specifically, how much. Because the Okinawan practice I am about to describe is not a portion control recommendation. It is a caloric restriction protocol with a randomized controlled trial behind it showing deceleration of biological aging at the cellular level. Habit 4. Eating to 80% as a cellular aging protocol. Hara Hachi-bu, the Okinawan practice of stopping eating at 80% fullness. Most Western wellness coverage of this principle frames it as a mindful eating tip, a way to avoid overeating, to stay slim, to develop a healthier relationship with food. That framing is not wrong. It is simply far smaller than what the research now shows is actually happening at the cellular level when this practice is held consistently over years. I'm going to give you the study, the mechanism, and the specific application. But first, there is something you need to understand about what moderate caloric restriction is doing to the pace of your biological clock. My relationship with food has always been shaped by two very different inheritances. My mother Claudine ate in the French tradition, slowly, with attention, stopping when satisfied rather than when the plate was clear. My father Marco, as a restaurateur, understood that the pleasure of a meal lived in its quality, not its quantity. Neither of them counted anything. But both of them, I understood only as an adult, practiced a form of natural caloric moderation that had nothing to do with dieting and everything to do with a different relationship with satiety. The research that now contextualizes that inheritance is significant. The calorie trial, comprehensive take of energy, was a randomized controlled study that examined the effect of a modest, sustained caloric reduction of approximately 12% on biological aging markers in healthy adults. The results, published in Nature Aging, found that participants practicing moderate caloric restriction showed measurably slower biological aging as assessed by epigenetic clock analysis, meaning their cells were aging at a slower pace than the control group eating to appetite. 12%, not severe restriction, not fasting. A modest, consistent reduction maintained over 2 years. Hara Hachi-bu, practiced daily from early adulthood as it is in Okinawa, produces exactly this category of sustained modest caloric reduction, without counting, without restriction as a psychological experience, simply by changing the relationship with the satiety signal. Stop at 80%, every meal, for decades. Resolve, begin implementing Hara Hachi Bu with one practice. Eat more slowly. The satiety signal travels from the gut to the brain with a delay of approximately 15 to 20 minutes. By eating at a pace that allows that signal between bites, eat without screens, and when you feel almost full, not full almost, stop. That margin, held consistently over years, is a biological aging intervention with peer-reviewed evidence behind it. But here is where most people stop, and the final habit brings us back to the skin, but from a completely different angle than habits 2 and 3. Because the facial massage practice common across South Korea and Japan is often explained using a mechanism that the science does not actually support. And the real mechanism, which is supported, is more specific and more actionable than the version you have likely heard. Habit 5, facial massage. The correct mechanism. Facial massage has been explained to most Western women through the framework of lymphatic drainage. The idea that the massage moves fluid and reduces puffiness by stimulating the lymphatic system. This claim, as applied to facial massage specifically, remains scientifically unverified. There are no robust studies demonstrating meaningful lymphatic drainage from facial massage in healthy individuals. And yet, the practice is real. The results are documented, and the women who do it consistently look different from the women who do not. The reason is a different mechanism entirely, one with a separate and legitimate evidence base. I'm going to give you that mechanism and the correct technique. But first, there is something you need to understand about what the dermis actually responds to. I incorporate a brief facial massage into my evening skincare routine. It takes less than 3 minutes, applied during the oil cleanse step I have maintained for years. I began it not from a specific research finding, but from noticing, across my years in the luxury beauty industry, that the estheticians and facialists who worked with the most consistently well-preserved skin in their clients were all practitioners of regular manual manipulation, and the ones I asked about mechanism rarely mentioned lymphatic drainage. They spoke about circulation, about tissue tone, about the dermis responding to pressure. The research that validates their instinct is in the area of mechanical pressure on dermal fibroblasts, found that consistent physical stimulation increases fibroblast activity. Essentially, the cells that make your structural skin proteins respond to being mechanically engaged by producing more of those proteins. This is the documented mechanism behind microneedling, behind certain massage devices, and behind consistent manual facial massage applied with sufficient pressure and repetition over time. A Japanese esthetician whose work I encountered through a contact in the luxury beauty industry described the Kobido technique, a traditional Japanese facial massage practiced for centuries, not as drainage work, but as tissue conversation. Pressure applied, held, released, the skin responding to the signal. Over years, the cumulative effect is measurable in dermal density. Resolve and final synthesis. The correct technique for fibroblast stimulation through facial massage. Apply a facial oil or balm to clean skin for adequate slip. Using the flat of your fingers, not the fingertips, apply firm, slow, upward pressure along the jawline, cheekbones, and forehead. Hold each point for 3 to 5 seconds before releasing and moving. 3 minutes every evening during your oil cleanse or as a separate step. Consistency across months and years is the variable. Occasional massage produces minimal effect. Daily massage, held as a non-negotiable, is what the women who practice it are actually doing. Here's the complete system these 5 habits form together. Habit 1 is the internal anti-aging protocol. Green tea's dual-track catechin mechanism protecting and preserving collagen simultaneously from the inside. Habit 2 is the topical barrier intervention. Fermented rice water improving skin barrier function at a bioavailability that positions it alongside considerably more expensive modern formulations. Habit 3 is the most fundamental habit of all, consistent daily UV protection as an epigenetic clock management practice, not a cosmetic preference. Habit 4 is the cellular aging deceleration practice, Hara Hachi Bu as a sustained, modest caloric restriction protocol with a randomized controlled trial showing measurable slowing of biological aging. And habit 5 is the structural skin maintenance practice, Facial massage understood correctly as mechanical fibroblast stimulation rather than drainage, producing collagen and elastin response through consistent daily pressure over time. None of these habits are expensive. None of them require a product sold at a luxury price point. What they require is understanding, the mechanism behind the practice, and consistency that most women have never been given a sufficient reason to maintain. You now have both. The next step is the full blueprint, the Undeniables Complete System. 7 complete guides covering identity, presence, first impressions, social mastery, wellness, standards, and your morning ritual. Everything the most elegant, vital, and undeniable version of you needs, built into one system for less than a dinner out. It is linked in the description. You came here for habits. What you are leaving with is the science behind them, and that changes how you hold them. I'll see you in the next one. Isabel.